Hello there and welcome to episode 16 of Behind the Business. And my name's Stephen Swift from Client Direction, and I help businesses grow and develop and scale and overcome them hurdles where you just don't know why something isn't working, and I show you how to fix it and get you to that 7 and 8 figure business. And as always, I am joined with the expert life coach that is John Child. John, how are you doing?
I'm good, thanks, Steve. Yeah. How's your week been?
It's been, as always, very, very busy, very useful for my clients to learn new things. In fact, one thing I have done actually is I've just landed a brand new client, and I'm very excited that they've chosen to work with me and seeing that I'm the right person to help them get their motorsport organization off the ground and where they want it to be. And it's a really exciting project because it helps. I can't say too much because we've signed NDAs and everything, but it's to do with people that wouldn't normally be able to participate in motorsports because of their abilities or lack thereof. I will share more when I'm allowed to, but yeah, it's going to be quite exciting indeed. And we've got some very big names. Silverstone, I can mention that, Williams, Formula One racing, Red Bull team racing, and then some various sports celebrities that I can't mention. But yeah, it is exciting. So I'm very pleased for that, and I'm very privileged that they've said you're the guy, and so let's rock and roll.
Good stuff.
So yeah, exciting. What about yourself?
Yeah, it's been a roller coaster of a week, but it's good to be back on the podcast after a week off. So
indeed, yes, because last week we didn't, did we?
You know, we had a week off last week while we sorted out the new look of the branding, which is all sorted. So look out in the next sort of 7 days for changes to the website and the new YouTube channel and all those kind of shenanigans. But for today, it's back to business. And what are we talking about today, Steve?
Today we briefly mentioned before our 1 week break there, we talked about in episode 50 direct mail shop wording and how you put together all that and the formula that you can use. And obviously there was some homework that I'd set in there on how you build the formula, and you give some fantastic content also with regards to why to word it and how it affects one thing and other people's emotional standpoint and how it can drive them to certain outcomes. And we also very, very briefly touch on split testing, and that's what this episode is going to deep dive a bit more into. And I have my little whiteboard at the side of me here, so there will be a little bit of a drawing. I am no professional Picasso, I will warn you all now. So if you're listening to it, you're probably going to be better off rather than those that are watching it on YouTube because my drawing skills are non-existent, but I'll give it my best shot. So split testing. John, what's your take on split testing? And then I can dive into some examples for people.
Well, I think it's just a necessity. I mean, whatever you're doing, it's one of those skills. It's a nuts and bolts skill, which you need to know. So, and I think whatever you're putting out to the public, it's I can't say much more than that, really, Steve. I think it's bread and butter. It's not a luxury. It's a key skill, and I'm really pleased that you're going to be leading us through this this week.
Okay, well, without further ado, the basics of split testing for those that are new to advertising and new to business. In the rawest term, it is when you create an advert and you want to test that advert to find out how well it's attracting your ideal client. And again, I reference back to previous episodes all the time. We've done the episode about how you find your ideal client using the blueprint avatar. So I'm not going to touch on that, but go back and watch that episode. That's how you do that. For the split testing side of it, we mean you've got an advert, but is it really pulling enough people to that? Is it attracting people's attention? Is it engaging people? Is it getting you bookings, for clarity calls or people placing orders and putting money in the bank? And the way we do this is use this term that we said, split testing. And what it means is we have 2 ads running at the same time. I'm going to get my whiteboard now. This is where it can go very, very wrong, and I can end up with black felt pen all over my fingers. But
I should point out that we do like to receive your artwork, but we can't guarantee to return each one.
And you can obviously send your entrance in, and the prize is just for fun. So again, I'm going to try and do this a bit awkward way. It's not a big whiteboard because of where I'm located at the moment. I'm not in the big office, so I haven't got that time. But basically, your split testing is plain whiteboard. It's like a magic trick, is this? And then all of a sudden, you've got.
Can you tell what it is yet, ladies and gentlemen?
Yeah, you've got an A, and the A is your advert, the one that you've put out there on the internet. But how do you know if that's doing any good? How do you know if it's actually delivering the best return investment, or what we call the AROI, the advertising return on investment? We do that by setting another ad. And so by the power of magic, we have then got a box with a B on it. It's exactly the same as A, but with one small difference. And this is the split testing part. It is a B. It is. So it's a small difference. It's one letter difference if you're looking at the alphabet, because obviously B comes after A and vice versa. And the power of doing that is you're only going to make one small change. And it could be, A, B, it could be the wording. The title could be slightly changed. And when I say slightly, you can go as small and micro changes as a friend of mine did this many, many years ago. I'm talking 15 years or more ago. And they sent a letter out. And what they did was they changed the word put, and they added the letter S to the end. So obviously it's the word puts. In the context of that framed wording, though, it changed the dynamics of that piece that they sent out. And it went from a small amount of conversion and signups to literally, it just went bonkers. Because what it did by adding that S on the end was it took people from they're going to get something, or it's going to literally put them right into it with doing very little. And so the mindset shift it had on the people that were seeing the ad was huge. And the guy made an absolute fortune out of his offer. So when I say you can just make a small, what may seem insignificant change in the wording, but it can have a major impact. And I know, John, you'll be able to come in here with some real good tips on the choice of wording and how that affects people's what they're going to do, how they're going to react to something, all that CTA, which we'll get to in a minute, the call to action. So do you want to jump in, John?
Yeah, I think this kind of harks back to what we were talking about in the last episode and what I was talking about that emotional connection. And words have an emotional connection. When you're putting an advert together or a letter or whatever, you're leading people through an emotional sequence. And the idea of split testing or A/B testing that Steve's describing is to say to yourself, right, well, I've got this first advert, which I think puts people in that emotional state. But what happens if I change this one word? What happens to their emotional state there? And in the example Steve just given, that one letter different changed the emotional state of the people reading it. Now, that's really important because you know what you want them to feel, and you've obviously written or put together the advert that you think is going to put them there, but that's not always the case. So it's knowing the difference between a sentence that's got and in the middle and the sentence that's got but in the middle. If you put but in the middle of the sentence, what happens is the reader ignores the first part of the sentence. It negates everything you've just said. You say and, it's a different story. They'll remember the first part of the sentence. It's knowing those kind of things. And from a psychological point of view, that's what you're looking to do with anything that you put in front of somebody. As a coach, sorry, I've just noticed there's something weird going on with my video. Sorry about that. But as a coach and a neuro-linguistic programmer, that's what I'm constantly trying to do with clients is to use language to say, look at this in another way, reframe this. And really with any kind of advert that you're putting out, what you're trying to do is reframe that person's need into a must, and that reframing is what you're trying to do linguistically or visually with a picture. I know I did a project a couple of months ago where we split test different pictures. They're very similar, but they were different, and it was just a slight change in color. Well, again, color has a big effect on your state of mind. Red is not a relaxing color, but it does stand out, and it means urgent or whatever, but you wouldn't want to go to a life coach or a counselor that was sat in a pillar box red room, and it's the same with your adverts. Think about that. Think about, those are the kind of things that you want to be split testing, is not just your wording, but the color of your headline. I know I did an experiment years ago. What's better, blue or red headlines? Because they were the colors du jour, if you like. And you could, at that point in time, I don't know what it's like now, but you could triple your income by making a red headline, not a blue headline, So think about these things. Think about, again, split test your fonts, anything visual. Does it ring true? Because the one thing that Steve will tell you as well is that grammar doesn't necessarily matter in these things. It doesn't matter if it sounds like complete tosh. If it hits somebody emotionally, that's what counts, because you don't speak in a grammatic way.
No, definitely not.
And when you, particularly when it's online, slightly different with paper, in my opinion, it doesn't need to be that formal. It can be like you're speaking it. So,
yeah, and I think what you're saying there about the formal thing, I mean, I turn up to some clients' offices when I have gone to offices. I do a lot remotely now because then I can help more people rather than having to travel all over the place, and I can only help one or two rather than many. And it is a case of, I've turned up to offices before where I've gone in with trainers on, shorts and a t-shirt, and the guy's saying, "You're going to help me make millions dressed like that." I went, "Doesn't matter what I'm dressed like, it's what I've got up here." And in less than 4 years, I helped him make over 10 million quid. So yeah, it is. Now, some people are a lot more, well, actually, I want that formality of someone dressed in a certain dress code, if you like. And if I went to a networking event or an exhibition or something, yes, I'd probably dress slightly differently. It would be semi-formal, semi-casual though, because I'm not a big one on putting a suit and tie on. I used to do back in the day when it was more appropriate, or the dumb thing, so to speak. But touching on that about the visuals and everything, maybe not so the case now. People are a lot more relaxed in business, and for me, I think it adds that little bit more fun factor to business as well, rather than being very, very corporate looking. And just touching on the thing you said there, John, about the colours as well, very, very important to touch on that, because like 15 years ago, when I did some direct mail response copy, which basically it's a physical letter in the post, something that John still uses today because it fits his business perfectly, because of the personal aspect and that the way that John communicates with his clients. And back then, I used to use font or text, and it used to be black. But when I wanted to make a point, it was bold, red, and underlined. Yeah. Then I tweaked it and I changed it to like a purpley lilac type of color, and that had a better response because the red was very angry. Yes, it was very bold and stood out, but it was almost shouting and aggressive. When I went to and it was a subtle purpley lilac color, and I actually learned this. I can't go into the details of how I learned it, but let's safe to say, if you ever end up in a police station, and in particular the cells, you will notice that they are painted, the walls are painted different colours in different cells. And on my tour, Her Majesty's pleasure, I asked one of the police officers, what's the reason for the different colour paint? Did they just have special deals on the tester pots and you couldn't afford the budget for the full tins or not? And he says, no, he says, when it's been tested and checked, and you'll know more about this than me, John, obviously being your field of expertise, but the different colours had a different effect on people depending on their state of mind. So if they had someone coming in proper guns blazing, kicking off, I know we're talking about split testing, I will get back to it, it's just important to hammer this home about colour, is if they are really aggressive, they need to calm them down and get them to a certain state in their mind. If they put them in this particular cell with this colour walls, it had a positive effect and it calmed them down, and then moved them to the next one. And it was amazing how it worked. I mean, John, you might have to add a little bit more to that maybe than I.
Yeah, well, I think
Not necessarily visiting, cells and everything. Who
obviously,
knows?
I don't have the experience level that you do, Steve, but
I'm always willing to take one for the team if it's in the interests of science and education.
I think the important thing to note about color really is you will know how color affects you, and there are certain standards like red for danger, purple is power, which is obviously why lilac stroke purple works. Pastel shades tend to be very relaxing.
And people have a favorite color, don't they, John?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
again,
they do.
it's right there in everyday life.
Yeah, that's it. And the important thing, and bringing it back to the A/B testing, is do what works for you and what you think is going to work for your clients or prospective clients, and then test it.
Yeah.
And you will find out. And there's nothing wrong with putting an advert together and then, like Steve said, going to a networking event, pulling the advert out and saying in your elevator speech, instead of boring everybody with "my name's John and I'm fat and ginger," why not pull out the advert and say, "My name's John, I'm a life coach, and today I'd like everyone's opinion on this advert." And pass it round.
I am still ginger.
and get people's opinion, because you've got a room full of people who have done what you're trying to do before, and they can help you put something together and then split test it.
Yeah.
Use the resources you've got. I think, and this is a slight side panel, but I think the one thing is, and I've mentioned before, and Steve knows, I'm not a big fan of face-to-face networking, although I do it from time to time. And it's not that I don't think it's got nothing to offer. It's just that I don't shine in that forum. But what I do know is that the people that go there, they underestimate the value of the room, because they go there to sell or to meet people and say, "Isn't it amazing what I do? And isn't it amazing what you do?" And then everybody walks away thinking, "Oh, I wish I'd sold something."
I think that's going to be a good topic, actually, though, John, for a future episode, is networking, whether it's on social platforms like Clubhouse is a massive one for, audible networking, or physical in the room one. So let's make that a topic for another day.
Absolutely. But in this context, you've got a room full of expertise, and you can use that for free while you're there and come away and say, "Well, I might not have sold anything, but wow, I got some great opinions on this advert."
And possibly made some contacts that you'll follow up with outside of the room rather than in the room on the day.
But potentially, just asking that kind of question in that kind of room, it can save you months of work.
It can.
And months of money in testing things that you didn't have to test because they've already told you it won't work.
And that's a really easy way, isn't it, of doing the split testing. And I want to get back to the whiteboard, John, because while you were talking, I've just added a little bit more of my artwork for the excitement of everybody. And I'm now going to go through it. So we started off with the A/B, and you'll have noticed there's an addition now of a little black dot and a little red dot.
Oh.
And the reason why, and you'll also potentially notice they're in different locations on the squares. And the reason for doing that is, it's when people are looking at something on the screen, their eyes follow a certain pattern and they'll go in a certain direction. It's not necessarily the direction you think it is, but data has shown also, and there's various tools that you can actually use on the internet that show you exactly what people do when they're on your website or when they're on a social media platform and reading through. And it basically has stated that when somebody is actually moving the mouse pointer, their eyes are actually going in that direction. And it's because they don't know they're moving the mouse. It's their eyes following and the hands making the mouse move. And if you're on not necessarily as much on a mobile phone, but on a desktop, I'm talking here. And the reason why I put those two dots in different places is because sometimes you need to have, that attention grabbing within your ad, whether it's part of the image or the body of the text, but predominantly image on this, is that you have it in a certain position to grab someone's attention, otherwise their eyes might miss it. Now, just as a broad rule of thumb, when people look at a web page or an advertisement or a picture, an image, they tend to start at the top left corner, go across and down the right-hand side. That's why when you're on a lot of web pages, like landing page where people are capturing data, and mine's no different, that you'll have a nice, really powerful headline at the top that reads and comes down on that right-hand side column. Then you'll have the opt-in form where you can put your name and email, phone number to get the free gift or subscribe to a community magazine or updates and special offers, etc. So that was the reason very quickly there why I put the 2 dots in different places. Now then, what I'm also going to share is the 4 points below, and that I have written here. So again, for those, unfortunately, at the moment, which are listening to this in black and white on their preferred podcast providers, jump onto the Behind the Business YouTube channel. If you can't find the YouTube channel, go to behindthebusiness.uk website. The links will all be on there, and John is very kind at keeping that up to date. Then you'll be able to see exactly what I'm looking at. But basically, it's a small whiteboard I've got. At the moment, I've got 2 squares, one with an A in it, one with a B, which is the split testing. And then below that, we've got 4 points. Now, them 4 points are very simple things that you can follow as a formula. Here comes your homework with regards to when split testing. We've mentioned the ABR 2 identical ads, apart from maybe one difference, and it can be small. Don't go huge with your change, and do not do too many changes. And this is key. A lot of people will write 2 completely different ads and run them to see what happens. That is a recipe for potential disaster and a big mistake in my opinion, because if you make one small change and it has a positive effect, you know that one change worked. So now what you do is you make another change to the original advert. So for example, the title, which is number 1 on the list here. If you keep advert A the same, but you change the title only in advert B to something slightly different, like John was saying, and but, or put, sorry, and things like that, or the first part of the headline, like attention or secrets out, or something like that, something that's compelling, something that grabs people's attention. And for crying out loud, don't use stuff like 50% off, or offer ends tomorrow and all this. It's old news. People see through it as that's scarcity tactics and the fear of missing out and loss. So do something that's plausible and fits with your ad. So the first part of your split testing will be to tweak and change your ad slightly, different wording possibly, maybe a different approach. Try that paradigm shift that I mentioned in the previous episode. So this is why emailing can kill your business. This is why confusion can be overwhelming and stop progress of your business. It's like, oh, hang on a minute. Yeah. What you're doing right now in your business is stopping you from scaling, and this is why. And all of a sudden it's like, well, what is it? What I've done there in each one of those, and literally I just threw them off the top of my head, each one of those, it creates a level of intrigue that people want to know more. And that's the first rule that you want to get people in. Once you've grabbed their attention, is give them some intrigue. And that was in the formula set for the homework in episode 15. John, did you want to just jump in there?
I just wanted to jump in there because that's really important, the point you just made there. And it harks back to what we've said all along, which is people don't like to be sold, but they like to buy. And they like to buy things that they feel like they've discovered, they're being let into something. And all of the examples that Steve just gave you there is he's letting the reader into a secret or a technique. He's teaching them something. That's important. The curiosity comes from, I could learn something from reading on. Yeah. And so I just wanted to point that out, Steve, because I think that's a key part of the formula is curiosity comes from not selling, not focusing on price, not focusing on the fear that you're going to miss out. It comes from, look, this is really useful and this can help you. And this will give you the edge over people that are doing similar things to you. If you learn this, you know something somebody else doesn't.
Yeah, or it takes you further forward. It moves the needle in your life or your business one way or another. So, that's the first part of the split testing is number 1, the title. The second part here, And, you know, I always say, you know, it doesn't have to be perfect. You know, it's not, you know, business in the opera or ballet or anything like that. It doesn't have to be polished. I mean, look at this demonstration I'm giving here. You know, I'm holding up a little cheap 199 whiteboard that I've just scribbled something on. And yet it's not about, you know, the quality of the video. It's about the quality of the content in the video, you know. So let's carry on. I just want to cover that because some people might think that's listening, what the heck's he doing? You'll see when you go onto the YouTube channel exactly what I'm doing, but I've tried to explain. It's on the whiteboard here. We've done the two boxes at the top with the A and B for the two ads. We've done the first tweak that you make to the title, and then we move on to the image will be another part that you can look at. And John's briefly mentioned this. I have a funny feeling we're going to go for 30 minutes as well, John. But
we're
anyway,
at 25 as we speak.
Yeah, we are, because I've still got 2 more points after this. So, but valid and very useful content for people. If you do want to know more and get more into this, feel free to reach out to either myself or John, you know, and we'll happily go through it a little bit more, or maybe a strategy session call with you, something like that. And it'll be for free anyway, so there's no hardship there. But with regards to the image, this can be 2 different images. One could be of, let's take, for example, a restaurant. Now things are opening up nicely again, after all the turbulence of the last 18 months or so. A restaurant. Say if you're trying to promote something in a restaurant, you could have a really good, clear image of your best-selling dish, and it could look phenomenal. And you could post that on an ad, and it might get some attention, some engagement, a few likes, maybe a bit of love, maybe the odd comment, you know, wanting to know a little bit more. Now you change that one image of that dish, that lovely plate of food that is like, you know, you can almost taste it. It looks so good. Now what you do is you have that same plate, but you have it on the table with a few people, smiley faces, maybe chinking the glasses for a cheers, having a drink over dinner in that restaurant with that plate, with that same dish. Just by saying that, and I'm going to repeat that again, because this, whether you're watching this video, or if you're just listening to it in your car or while you're walking the dog, which is what I do on Clubhouse quite a bit, to be fair, I'm going to say that again. You can have an image which has just a white background, a plate with the most favorite dish you could ever think of, and you're like, wow, I'd like to eat that. You have that same plate with that same food. The white image is gone. It's now on a table. It's got the cutlery at the side. It's got a few people sat there with a couple of wine glasses or drinks of juice or coffee, depending on what your preference is. Smiley faces, having a laugh, having fun with that same dish in front of them. Emotionally, which one would you prefer to be? Would you like to just look at the food, or do you want to be in there enjoying the food? And this is the power of advertising and promoting. And the difference is the attraction would be the one where it's got the people having enjoying the fun time and whatever they're celebrating or just time together, but they're enjoying it over this lovely plate of food, as opposed to just having a picture of food. And that is the difference. That's the bit that really drags people into it and gets them more excited, makes them wanting to take action and do something. So that's the thing about the image. It's a silly kind of scenario, but I think it gets the point home. You can either have a plain image of the product or the service, or you can position that product or service in a situation, in an actual life example, if that makes sense, John.
Yeah, absolutely does. I'm just going to throw a note of caution into this for people that are doing this with images. Be careful. Think about what your image actually looks like. We're used to very short attention span, televisual, flashing images in front of our faces, and we don't really take in what we're seeing. But when you're putting this together, you have to be very careful about what is the situation this person is being put into. And it's a very quick example of a company that I think has got this completely wrong, but seems to be everywhere at the moment. Jet2 Holidays, right? On the television, they're doing television adverts, and their television, you'll have seen them if you're in the UK. They're basically point of view adverts where you're holding the hand of somebody who's leading you through a holiday, right? And it's either a bloke walking you through the holiday or a woman walking you through the holiday. And the idea is, if you're a bloke watching it, you think to yourself, oh, this would be a fantastic holiday with Jet2, because I'd be walking through this holiday with this scantily clad woman and jumping in the sea. Or if you're the woman, you're thinking, oh, I'm with a silver fox and I'm having a dinner and everything else. That's all very well, except that their adverts, they're not singular like that. So you start the advert and you're being led through the beach by a scantily clad woman, and then all of a sudden you're holding the hand of a silver fox 60-year-old bloke having dinner with him over candlelight, and you're thinking, whoa, what the hell just happened? I just made a life choice I wasn't expecting. So now that's a really flippant, silly example, and obviously that advert's working for them because they insist on using it and annoys me intensely every time I see it. But the point I'm using it to make is you need to make sure that the position you're putting the prospect in when you're putting them in that point of view situation and in the middle is one that they'd want to be in.
Yeah, and I think the point there, though, John, is the fact that you have highlighted that advert and you said it's obviously working because they insist on using it, and it obviously does work because we're talking about it. And there could be people going, Jet2.com,
Yeah.
not heard of that airline before. I'm going to have
Yeah,
a look at
they'll
this
recognize
advert.
the advert though.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden they're like looking, and it might appeal to some of our listeners or people watching this on YouTube.
I'm sure it does,
and that's how it works, isn't it?
Exactly.
But your point you make is a clear one and very valid as well.
But it's more about the position in that, and that switch. Is that switch one that you would want to put in an advert in that way? I think that scenario works very well for two separate adverts.
Yeah, I agree.
But having that switch in the middle of an advert, A, that's cost cutting on their part.
Yeah.
And B, it's confusing for everybody that watches it if they're emotionally invested into the advert. And the one thing that you don't want to do, because we've said it time and time again, nobody wants to read your advert. Nobody cares. So if you're going to interrupt them, get it right. Don't offend them. Don't upset them. Make sure it's worth their time. And if you confuse them, they're just going to go, oh, it's too much work, I'm going away.
Yeah, especially if it doesn't relate to them, if it doesn't relate to them as well, because you make that switch, all of a sudden it's like, oh, I thought it was about this. Oh, it's obviously not now. It's about that. Oh, right. And you've broke that concentration and that relationship, that rapport you built with somebody. All of a sudden they're going, oh no, my mistake, I got it wrong. Yeah. And they'll switch off from it. So
you can get away with it,
and it is cost saving. Yeah.
Yeah, you can get away with it to a certain extent on television because the people that are watching it are stuck. They have to watch it, but online, no one cares.
No
one wants to see it. So get it right. You really need to think about this, and that again is where your testing becomes ultimately the most important part of putting this together.
Absolutely. So really be thoughtful about your imagery. I've given some examples. John just given another fantastic example there. So be thoughtful about what you're using. What are you trying to portray in that image? Is it just to grab someone's attention that's relevant to your business? Or is it to showcase something that you want people to actually invest more time in finding more information about it or getting in touch? So be thoughtful about that. Again, if you need any help with it, then get in touch with either of us. I just want to jump on to the whiteboard again, John, and go to step 3 of my fantastic drawing. So we've done type, we've done image. Now we're going to go on to the actual body text. Okay. Now the body text is exactly what it is. For those that don't know, it's the main part of the wording. This could also be the scripting if it's a video, and VSLs are slightly different. Video sales letter, advertising, it's slightly different, and we can talk about the different types, on another occasion. But the body, we kind of covered this last week, so I'm not going to hammer it home anymore, John. I think people ought to watch episode 15, the direct mail shot wording, because we've covered that in there. But it's basically the choice of words, keeping that flow going, keeping the rapport going, the relationship you're building up with people, so you don't have that disconnect, like the example John just said about the ad switching halfway through. So I don't want to go over that again because we've done it. I want to jump straight to the 4th step I've got on here. And again, I'm keeping these steps simple. We can break it down even more, but for the purpose of this short episode, I just want to cover, what I can as quickly as I can. So the 4th point and the last point I've got on there is CTA, call to action. This is where people actually do something once they've looked at your advert. Could be a lot of it online, click on a link. If it's a letter, it could be pick up the phone, it could be send an email, it could be go and visit a website. That's the call to action. You want them to now do something. Now you've got them into that state of mind of I'm happy and I want to move further forward. I want to go to the next step, take it to the next level. How do I do that? You're showing them with the CTA. So a lot of the time it's to get your free download, click this link. For your free appointment, ring this number. To see our bonus video material, to give you a little bit more information about us, visit this website. Do you get the idea there? That's what a CTA is, and that is all it is. But make it absolutely clear. You've got to really dumb it down for some people, because they'll just not get it. You know, they'll think, oh, well, that was really good. Oh, brilliant. You've got to almost not command them or demand them to do something, but word it in such a way where they know that you haven't finished talking to them yet. And now there's something that they can get involved with and take part in and do as well. So, you know, make them feel part of something very special. And if they don't want to do it, that's fine. But you don't want them to miss this extra content, this free information, this bonus, you know, content that you have for them, or an opportunity for them just to get involved a bit more. So that call to action, perfectly clear, but pretty direct and blunt as well. But so it's in keeping with the rest of the wording and the images that you've used in the previous part of your ad. And with regards to the split testing side of it, you can do learn more, book more, order now. These are the wordings that you can split test and change, and it has a massive impact. I mean, I remember building a website for a company a number of years ago when I worked with a guy that was a fantastic coder, and we built websites. I was the guy doing obviously all the selling and understanding what their needs were, and we built it around that. And what we had is we had 2 buttons next to each product, and one of them said more info, and the other one I think had content details or something like that. Didn't matter which they clicked on, it went to the same page. But because the wording was different, some people would say, well, I'm interested to know more, or, well, I need the details on this. So they would click the one that was relevant to them in their mind, how their mind worked. We subconsciously had thought, right, we need to now make sure we're using the right one. And that's why we applied it in such a way that we did on something as simple as that website and those 2 links. But again, it's all about the call to action and being able to get something that you can actually use and make use of in the right way. John, did you want to add anything more to that? CTA, no, I do apologize. There's a bit of background noise. There's doors opening and closing here at the moment.
No problem. No, I think that was pretty clear, Steve. I think what we'll talk about at some point is how that body text and how that advert leads to that call to action, as far as getting people in that emotional state. What salespeople like Steve will know as a yes ladder, I guess. And if you can lead people through that, and a sales funnel is effectively another form of yes ladder. But if you can lead people through that in your advert and get them to that call of action, they're much more likely to take that call of action as well. And, you know, again, you need to test that ladder and the text that you use for that. But that's for another day, I think, Steve. I think that's been a particularly good session.
Sorry, I've got something in my hair there. I do apologise. Even with my glasses on. So, well, I mean, we've kind of rushed it a little bit, but I don't think too much where we've lost people or confused them, John. So, but again, obviously it's recorded, so they can play it back and see the bits as and when they need it, kind of thing. So
I think what we've done today, we've done a very good introduction to it, a very good basic grounding, and maybe if we can look at individual parts in a little bit more depth from that 4-stage process. Maybe next time, or in a future episode.
I think it's content that people can use as well, and it's important, I think, for people to know how to do things. They might subcontract it out, or get somebody in to do some of the parts of it, later down the line. But I remember speaking to a chap earlier on this week, actually, and he said, I've got the budget to be able to pay someone to do it, but I think it's important that I learn how it works myself. And again, we cover this for the done for you, solution sort of thing in a previous episode. So that's why I wanted just to break that down. As I say, it's quite basic, but basic is simple, and simple means people can take action and do something with it as well. They can take a look at what they're currently doing and do some tweaks themselves, so they don't have to get in touch with myself or you. They can try things out, but if it's still not working, it's not the case that this formula doesn't work, and your homework is literally do your A, B, and do your 1, 2, 3, 4. So do your title, do your image, do your body text, and do your call to action, your CTA. Look at tweaking just one of them. Don't do, I mean, let me make this clear. Don't do all four at once. You know, within your ad, your base ad A, that is it. That's where your starting point is. Your B is, sorry, go on, John.
You just touched on something there. Just as a final point, Steve, before we leave, when they're doing their homework and they're doing the A and the B, how long would you recommend they run an advert for before they decide whether or not the tweak has worked?
Literally a couple of days, depending on the budget as well, John. Depends how much they're putting in. People are doing £5 a day. Sometimes you might want to let it run a little bit longer. But with analytics, and I know this is a completely different topic about insights and analytics on Facebook, because this has all changed recently, and they're doing away with the insights as people normally see it. They're now trying to encourage you to go to the business manager to see all these different statistics from page visits and interactions on posts. But again, that's a completely different topic altogether, is Facebook insights and everything. But with regards to if you've got a budget, and it's whether it's a small budget or whether it's a ridiculously large budget because you've already ramped it up to that point, you should get the data within a few days and know that's just doing nothing. Right, I'll kill it. It's not made any difference at all. Or now the engagement I've got has fallen off a cliff. Then you know that tweak is wrong. So stop it immediately and save your money. And then try changing it differently again. So stick with the title. If you've got the budget to run like 4, 5, 6, or even 10 micro ads, all with a different title, then do it. You'll see very quickly the ones that are working. Literally within a day or two, you'll see if they're working, and just kill the rest. Now, it could be based on your product and your business type. It could be seasonal, where you're going to get more. It could be the day of the week where your audience are busy through the day, and they haven't got time on the night because they're exhausted on the weekend. That's their catch-up time. And if your ad isn't running at that time, then you could be missing it, and you could actually have an absolute blinder of an ad. It's just not getting served to people because you've paused it. So, you need to take that into consideration. All part of the split testing as well is the time that you deliver something. I've been testing this on Instagram Reels lately. The time of day where I actually launch a reel out, or post a reel out there, and the hashtags and everything else that I use. But the timing, more than anything, has a huge impact on the reach of my reels. I've got some reels that have got about 62 views. I've got others that have got nearly 6,000 views. And it's purely because of the day and the time that I've posted it has been when people are most active on Instagram, that are my target audience.
Yeah.
So this is all part of the split testing. These are just the 4 basic key points that you can look at doing. If you've got the budget to do it, I would say run each one for 7 days. That way you've got it covered every day of the week. And have a look at the trends, look at the insights there to say, right, well, and Instagram has this as well as Facebook, and all these platforms has these measuring tools. It'll tell you at what day of the week, how many people clicked or looked and engaged with your ad, and for how long in some cases. If it's a video sales ad sort of thing, it tells you, how many seconds before they dropped out, sort of thing. And you can do retargeting when you start getting to that kind of analytical data. And again, that's a different topic that we can discuss. In fact, I'll probably get an expert in to do that, because I know someone that specializes in that, so we'll probably get them on board anyway. But that's the basics. Is to answer your question, if you're tight on budget, run it for 2 or 3 days and drop the ads that are doing nothing at all, and go back to the drawing board and change that title. Once you've changed the title, you've exhausted that a little bit, then start changing the image out. And then start changing the text body. The text body, not too much, because obviously that's got a certain amount of content in it that tells people, that's the story that's really bringing people in and getting that rapport building. So that should be pretty much set in stone. It might be whereabouts you relate you can take action now if you like kind of point, which we touched on again with the direct mail shot and the different links clicking in email. So again, I don't need to cover that again. Look at episode 15 for the actual body side of things of where you're doing wording. And like I said, the call to action naming or wording can be slightly different. Learn more, find out more, grab your free bonus, etc. I've said it once. I don't want to repeat myself and take people's time up unnecessarily, but that's what I would suggest with that side of things. So do those 4 points for your homework, utilize it in your advertising and your marketing strategies at the moment, and see what kind of an effect. But make sure you have got a way of measuring. And again, if you don't know how to measure it, feel free to reach out and I'll give you some pointers on that. No problem. other than that, John, I think for a basic topic of people using this as part of their split testing strategy, I think that that gives them a good starting point, if nothing else.
Yep, that's fantastic. And we will be back same time next week.
Have a great weekend, and we'll speak to you soon.
Take care.